We are still second in the league, 6 points and a game in hand, and that's why we can't afford to take any chances.
We need players desperately.
We sign loads of players,
Yes,
but
right,
they're all
aye.
terrible, so we need some quality players.
Get a league to win here. We are second in the league. Stop talking
Do you know
about
what? I
building
think
for the future.
please, for the baby Jesus and Santa and the Saints, can you provide the manager with some good players?
It's a hell of a lot of surgery for a guy that's under a lot of pressure, and if he doesn't win the league, probably doesn't see out the season.
It's a Christmas miracle. Celtic have won a game of association football. That's this week on 20 Minute Tims. I'm your host Jamie, joined by Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
Happy Christmas, everyone. Celtic have done it. They've won a game. Congratulations, Melly. Just sort of mark the occasion.
I didn't think it was ever going to happen again.
They said it couldn't
Bit of
happen.
a weird handshake there. What was the rubbing for?
Well, go for the wrong knuckle. Yep, they said it couldn't be done. Celtic were never going to win a game of football ever again, and yet we showed them. That's everything fine now. We can all look back on what a terrible month that was, and everything's going to be fine.
It was. I'd sort of said, Melly, on the run up to the Aberdeen game that, you know, I'm not going to try and take too much away from the Aberdeen game, because purely on a numbers basis, you would expect Celtic Football Club to win one game in 5, and it doesn't necessarily mean that much is in the upturn. That was going into the game, but when I watched the game, I was quite encouraged. I thought that game was some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, the manager was struggling domestically in the cup game as well, and in Europe performances.
Just say all the games. You didn't have to divide them up into categories there.
Performances weren't great. But enough about Danny Roll. Thanks for ruining it. I'll come on to Wilfried Nancy. Just a wee aside there, that the difference in questioning is absolutely staggering right now between Nancy, Roll, and what Russell Martin got as well. So, but yeah, delighted with the victory yesterday. It looked like Celtic were playing good football. It was enjoyable to watch, and they got the result. Could have came a bit earlier, but great to watch, and got the result in the end, and just needed that wee bit of sweet relief, didn't we?
So, Steve, when I've been talking about Celtic this season, I've been looking at Celtic in my mind, I've got a picture of Celtic that sort of goes back to like last January, about how bad they've been, about how like the down tools and all the sort of turgid football we've been watching, and it never really got going. So when I saw that at the weekend from Wilfried Nancy, I thought, this is probably some of the best football we've played in the last 12 months. That's a pro. One of the cons is we look still quite fragile. It still looks like we need to score 3 goals to win a game, which is obviously a difficult position to be in. But I thought, in terms of like attacking intent, I thought Celtic looked dynamic. I think there's a lot of myths dispelled. You know, like the players looked bought in. They didn't look like a team who weren't playing for the manager, and all these sort of rumours that you've been hearing down the round. So I was really, really encouraged by what I saw, but I'm not too sure what it means. What does that game actually stand for?
That's it, isn't it? I think that's the big old caveat hanging over all of this, is that it's just one game. Encouraging though it might have been, it really is just one game. However, I will take it at this moment in time. If we're living on a kind of game by game basis, I'll take an encouraging one compared to what we've seen in the previous 4. So I'll absolutely take it. But they're thin in the ground this year. I think you're right to point that out. Since February, certainly with the Bayern Munich game we reference all the time as basically the moment it started to dip for Celtic, there have been very few games you can point to and say, well, that was a really exciting attacking performance where we created loads and loads of chances, or massively unlucky not to be completely out of sight. A little bit of jeopardy in there with a goal conceded. And I suppose in a way it's quite similar to the Feyenoord game, in that kind of controlled most of the game, created chances, and then we were it just happened the other way around. Feyenoord opened the scoring in that game, but it was a ball straight through the middle that opened Celtic up, and it had us kind of worried a little bit about it. But in terms of the chances created, I've never really seen anything quite like it.
It's crazy, wasn't it?
It's so unlucky. And I know, like, we have the conversation all the time about how you make your own luck, and I think Wilfried Nancy, he referenced that after the game about how he doesn't believe in luck, but we don't have any. So I thought that was quite an interesting way to look at it. But the amount of chances created, hitting the bar in the post multiple times, missing sitters. There was one moment where Callum McGregor had a shot and Mitov tipped it over the bar. And at that point, McGregor actually waited till the keeper get back on his feet and like gave him a wee sort of applause just to show a little bit of respect for what an amazing save he'd pulled off. So yes, it's one game. What does it mean going forward? We don't know. things could completely fall apart. Such as the fragility of this team and the setup and all that. It could completely fall apart against Livingston, but for now, I'll absolutely take it.
The stuff in front of goal was unbelievable. Did we hit the woodwork 3, 4, 5 times,
Yeah.
passing up gilt-edged chances by Johnny Kenny, who will come to the goalkeeper pulling off wonder saves. We've beaten. When did we beat Aberdeen? Like 8-1. That at Parkhead, was it 9-1? What was that?
It was 9, wasn't it? Yeah, it was
Aye.
2012, 11 or 12. Or
Yeah.
something.
I would love to dig up the stats between this game and that game and see which game had the more chances, because I think it was probably yesterday or the other day's game.
Yeah, for the XG anyway, Celtic were flying high in that, and it is a difficulty we have right now because even the Dundee United game during the week, totally different result. But if Celtic had taken their chances in the first half, or even Daizen Maeda somehow manages to miss from a couple of yards to make it 2-2, who knows what happens to Celtic? But that was the sort of fine margins then. At the weekend, it looked like it never really felt like we weren't going to get the goal, because you're like, there's that many chances. This cannot continue to happen, and it was clear-cut chances. The ones that hit the bar are not the biggest of chances for me, because that's crosses that end up just scalping the
angles.
bar.
They
with
would
a-
have been flukes, but for two of them to happen in quick succession is pretty remarkable in itself.
But the keeper and then the lack of finishing as well, it gave me hope that from the outset I have said that I've got big reservations about this formation. And in the last week, I think we've seen why this formation can work and why it might not be able to work. It can't work with Celtic, but yesterday gave us the hope that it can work. If you could just plug in a couple of good players into certain positions, then Celtic win that game quite. In fact, if you put one player, a good striker, into that, Celtic win that game comfortably.
And that's kind of where I'm with Celtic just now. After watching the game at the weekend, I'd sort of thought to myself, do you know what, all this fighting and arguments and sackings and resignings rather, and temporary, all we've managed to achieve, or all that Celtic have managed to achieve in that, is bring us to pretty much exactly where Brendan Rodgers was just before he left. And that's a team that's performing on the pitch, albeit the football was a bit better, but is in desperate need of a striker, because you feel bad singling someone out. But I think it's worth mentioning. I think I'd mentioned it in a podcast that you and I did for Patreon, Melly, but Johnny Kenny, he's in a poor run of form at the moment. He's really struggling in front of goal, but he's our only option. So it's a situation where Johnny Kenny could feasibly get the manager the sack, because the manager is creating lots of chances for the guy and he's not putting them away. Yeah, he put them away under Martin O'Neill for a time, but it's a dangerous place to be in when you're so leaky at the back and you're creating lots of chances at the front, but you're not putting them away. It's like, I feel until we get this striker situation sorted, every Celtic game is going to be so nervy.
Yeah, and that's the problem Celtic are in. We have been all season. People don't like XG, but we've underperformed our XG by about 13 or 14 goals. Add that to this team, and they're miles ahead in this league without even being brilliant. And it's maybe like with Brendan Rodgers and Martin O'Neill, sometimes the games didn't seem the best, or we didn't create a lot of chances, but Celtic always miss gilt-edged chances. They have done all season, and it again goes back to it. Why? Because we've sold strikers last January and in the summer, even guys like Nicholas Kuhn. You're taking away goals from a team and then putting in inferior players and expecting the same results. The same results don't happen. It's almost
like people were saying, you take all these goals out of the team and you won't score goals anymore. Yeah. It's almost like people were saying that quite a lot during the summer.
And it was like a high number of goals that Kuhn, Maeda and Ida Kyogo got last season. That's all gone. But look, for Celtic, I think it's a bit different from Brendan Rodgers, because I don't quite think the chances were being created as much then. This system's different, but it is creating more chances. I still have reservations, which we can get onto later. But if he could just plug in a couple of good players into this system, you go, do you know what, this could work, and it's sort of shoots a positivity that I haven't seen recently. I wish the Dundee United game had been a bit different. If Celtic had got that second goal, I think we would have went on to win the game comfortably. Wasn't to be. The Aberdeen game should have got a second goal beforehand, but this needs to be the start of something. We need to see Celtic go into the Livingston game, and then we've got a tough one against Motherwell as well, and then Rangers. We need to see these performances continue, but we need to be more ruthless. Do we have the players to do that? No.
What do you think the squad take for this, Stephen? Because there's a lot of talk about the players maybe not buying in. Some of the players, they didn't ever sound the most convinced when they were asked about the manager's methods and and whether or not there was a buy-in there. Some of them did, but some of them didn't. I think some of them, I don't know if they were trying to send a message about it, but they looked as if they were trying to send a message about it, which I suppose is send a message itself. But I think this is going to be really important for the players as well. Like you get that win and all of it, and the manner we got the win, and all of a sudden you don't feel like you're on a sinking ship.
I suppose
potentially,
with some of the players, obviously there are players who are they're talking to the media more than others. And I think that's notably like so Luke McCowan, Liam Scales has spoken to the media quite recently. We've not really heard from others. But that a transition such as this is obviously, it's always going to favour some players more than others. Some players are benefited from it. I think Yang has been good. Yang has been good the last few games. Now, we already give him a lot of credit for being quite good under Martin O'Neill as well. But now that he's had his role adjusted quite a lot, I can actually see him thriving in that position. It wouldn't be my first choice. Like if you were giving me a transfer window, and we could maybe come on to that, where you've got like some Christmas wishes that you want to fulfil, Yang wouldn't really be my ideal player in effectively any position really, but I can see him doing well. And
I think he's been good recently. Not fine. I think he's been good. I don't know what's changed with him. He seems to have cut a lot of nonsense out his game. He seems to be working really hard. I said to you as we were rewatching the game before we turned on the mics and cameras, I would not be in a rush to sell Yang in January.
No,
not a mad rush.
Not at the moment. No, look, again, I think we've seen the ceiling of Yang's quality. We need to give him an opportunity. If he's going to be playing in this new system, maybe it's a kind of blank slate for him to an extent, because as I've said previously, you don't need to just go unlearning everything you've seen over 80 appearances now. That doesn't just go away. But you give him an opportunity at it. And my point with Yang is that it can look good in that formation because he works really, really hard, and we saw that in the opening goal against Aberdeen where he lost the ball doing maybe one of those quite typical Yang things where he drifts inside, comes into trouble, but he followed the ball all the way to the other side of the pitch, won it back and created the goal from it. But to finish off with my point on the different types of players, it might just be that because they've spoken to Luke McCowan, because they've spoken to Liam Scales, who might not be enjoying, who might not be taking to the new formation as much as others, that may be different if you speak to Yang. If you speak to some other players who are I don't maybe flourishing is the wrong word because we are talking about one game, but you might get a different answer from different players. So I'm not reading too much into it's a bit of an adjustment, and some of the stuff we were getting was, if he's wedded to this method, we have to kind of get on board with it.
Who was that, Scales, that said that? Yeah,
slightly uncertain wording when it was a few weeks ago. But I'm not really bothered about that because those are words and the actions were different against Aberdeen. I think the performance was hugely encouraging. It's one game again, but I'd rather see the players buying in front of me rather than listen to them do a kind of half media trained version of what it is where they're trying to express themselves in public. I'm not so bothered by that. I was encouraged by how they did it on Sunday. Sorry.
Yeah, look, you can see bits of it coming together, can't you? There was some nice stuff down the left hand side with Tierney, McCowan, and Hatate all sort of rotating in there, and you do wonder if you could get players who are more naturally suited to those positions, if it could be a bit better as well. And Maeda, not Hatate, sorry, it was Maeda on the left hand side, and you do wonder like if we could get. I think Kieran Tierney's sort of perfectly suited to this, but if we could get a left wing back who's better than that going on the outside, and we can get in there. So it's just going to depend what Celtic do in the window, but you can see things, and what I think we mentioned it last week, or I did, that under Ange Postecoglou you could see what he was trying to do with poor players in there, and you always thought, you know what, if we could bring in better players that suit it, then this could go somewhere. I think with that performance at the weekend, we could see, do you know what, about 4 or 5 players,
7 or 8 players, and we're absolutely golden here.
And we could be good, but I still worry about the profile of each player in different positions, and we might get onto that later. But I think you can see, like, do you know what, if we maybe had a full selection of squad, the guys that weren't injured, or we bring in a couple of players to supplement it, you could see how this could work, because even though there's guys playing at centre half, they are getting forward, so it's not as if you're losing out the attacking roles. Because you mentioned that a couple weeks ago about going from 3-4-3 to 4-3-3 means you take somebody at the attacking role, but seems to be one of the centre halves on, if it's on that side, is going to push forward. So
quite often on the corners of the box, it's not as if they're quite central. They do open up quite wide.
And if that is the case, who better than to have Kieran Tierney there, who is able to put crosses into the box, and we've seen that from one of the. He's putting these dangerous balls into the back post, but I still have grave reservations about this. But this was the first game that I'd seen this could work. Dundee United first half, okay, you can maybe take that. This game was the one I was like, do you know what? This could work, because if Celtic create that amount of chances, they will score. But the problem comes if they don't create that many chances, because, as you said, we need to score 3 goals to win a game. That means we have to create about 12 clear-cut chances. If we can bring in somebody clinical, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm sticking to it.
Going to be far off it against Aberdeen, but trying to replicate that on a week-by-week basis is going to be very, very difficult indeed.
We've done it in 2 games in a row, haven't we?
True.
I think, again, Johnny Kenny's got an XG of nearly 4 goals in the last 2 games, and he's got 0 goals. So that's just one player. And we've got the Daizen Maeda scores that header against Dundee United 99 times out of 100, doesn't he? The Yang one at the back post as well. There was plenty of chances against Dundee United. Celtic just didn't take them. Rolls into the Aberdeen game, the same thing happens, but we get the goals in the end. So those 2, half a performance against Dundee United and the one there show that, look, if Celtic are going to create this many chances, we should be fine. I still do worry about a lot of things, though.
The Johnny Kenny thing, so you've mentioned them, or you both mentioned them a couple of times now, and it feels quite unfair to single them out, but ultimately it would be quite disingenuous to talk about these games and not identify it as a pretty significant problem, because
it is the problem.
It is the problem is sticking the ball in the back of the net.
Some of the misses were unforgivable.
And you, Jamie, you described him as a manager, a type of player who gets the manager's sack, and I think it's very, very accurate to say that. And for a lot of people, the Dundee United performance, that was it. It buried Wilfried Nancy, and to all intents and purposes, for a significant number of people that were at that game, that was it. It was finished. You could have sacked him. And I said after the game as well, you could just do it just now. So it's very, very difficult for him, and I sympathise, because Johnny Kenny will know that. He will know how much pressure he has brought on top of the team and the manager by missing those chances. But the trouble is, he's just a guy. It's one of those typical or archetypal sort of examples of a guy who just shouldn't be there. He just shouldn't. It's negligence by the board. I know people might just be, pardon the pun, bored of talking about the board, but
their fingerprints are all over this team more so than the managers.
That's it, exactly. Again, I made the joke a few minutes ago about how we were all talking about how, look, if you keep selling off goals, eventually we're going to stop scoring them, and that's exactly where we've come to. There have been a few observations made that but he was scoring under Martin O'Neill. That's only partly true, because see, if you actually look at Johnny Kenny's appearances, so Martin O'Neill managed 8 games. He scored a couple against Falkirk, one against Rangers, and one in the 4-0 game against Kilmarnock. See, from the point of the St Mirren game that Celtic really badly struggled in, it was a terrible performance away, and they managed to get that goal through Callum McGregor.
Barely played, did he?
He was hooked at half-time. He was hooked at half-time in that game, and then he didn't make a single appearance after that. And that includes Feyenoord, which, fair enough, he probably wouldn't have been exactly the guy for that occasion. But you think of the other games that were involved there.
Dundee and
Hibs were the other 2 games where we'd need goals in both of those games, and Johnny Kenny doesn't go off the bench. So Martin O'Neill, yes, got a couple of goals out of him, but then gave up. He stopped playing him. And I think Wilfried Nancy has been forced into bringing him back into the team, because we need to get Daizen back out on that left side, because he's playing well out there. He's back giving defences a torrid time and getting the ball back into the box for Johnny Kenny to miss. I know that's where it falls down, but Daizen's much more effective out there.
Tonekti went away, didn't he? So that's,
of course, yeah.
Not that he was playing, but Balakwisha, 2 options in inverted commas that could have been there. We just don't have that anymore. Yeah. Hence why we had 4 centre-halves on the bench at the weekend. Yeah.
Played better without Tonekti on the pitch, didn't we?
Yeah, there's a lot of players you could probably aim that at, but it seemed a bit more settled on Sunday, because we've had Tonekti, we've had Yang, we've had McCowan, Tierney, but we've had all these guys sort of playing the wide positions, the wing-backs, and at one point we had 2 wing-backs playing on the opposite side of their stronger foot, whereas this one we had McCowan on the left and we had Yang on the right, and Yang, his skills involved his dribbling, but if he is on the other side, it means he cuts inside a lot and runs himself into trouble. If you put him on the right hand side, it puts him on his stronger foot, and he's got sort of the wing down the wing to go. So I'm still not sold on Yang, but he's doing a lot better than now, and he's got the work rate there. And McCowan on that other side's left-footed and can move inside, which allows Tierney to sort of overlap him, and then Daizen helps out. So there is relationships forming, but it all falls down if the guy you cut it back to, he's not even missing the chance, he's missing the ball.
Yeah.
And it's just wild how it just, all you have to do is let it hit your foot, mate, and it's a goal.
Shin did that for Tierney's goal. See if you watch it back. We're obviously so focused on the elation that Tierney had got his back in front, right? But Shin dropped in at the front post for that. It was a great cross from Donovan, but he dropped in at the front post and completely missed it and looked pretty dejected when the ball fell to Tierney and he just nodded it in. I could almost like read his mind and thought, like, that should have been me. I should have been getting the goal. I should have been the hero here, but he just missed the ball.
I forgot to mention we're doing presents later. It's a Christmas special. We've got presents for each other. We'll be doing that later on the podcast. Melly, I've got to say, I can't back it up with anything. I'm just not convinced about this wing-backs pattern that you've used. And I get that they are in wing-back positions, but I just wonder if too much has been made of this in the sort of hypercritical environment that we're living in with Wilfried Nancy, because they're, again, we discussed this before, and I don't have the tactical knowledge or lingo to back it up, but when I'm watching these guys, they don't look that different to the positions that they or other players were playing under the likes of Martin O'Neill. I know they start a wee bit further back, but I'm not sure that when you say wing backs, I'm thinking of like a Gat or some defender, some primarily defensive role. But it seems these guys are just playing as wide midfielders, sometimes wingers. They're coming inside a lot. There's a lot of diagonals and overlaps, and I'm thinking, is it just the starting position that they find themselves in? And I think when people say, I mean, he's got Luke McCowan at wing back, okay, technically he does, but is he doing the job of a wing back?
This is going to be part of the job, but hasn't it? You're going to have to go back the way, and for Luke McCowan's strengths, for the wing back position, for me, you need to have an engine, which fair enough, but you need to have pace and you need to have a defensive and an attacking side to you, and I just don't see him having the skill set for that. It's just, if we were to be sitting here this time next year, I don't think Luke McCowan, if Celtic have a decent if Celtic have a decent 2 transfer windows, that Luke McCowan would be anywhere near playing there in the future. Possibly the same with Yang, but it's more a needs must now. But yes, they are going to be more attacking, but what's the end game here? Because Wilfried Nancy hasn't been brought in here just to get Celtic over the line. He's been brought in here to try and push Celtic onto the next level, you'd like to think. And that starting lineup going into European games will get absolutely ripped apart.
I mean, that's not going to come up, though, is it? I mean, you wouldn't expect it.
We've got 2 in January, which we're going to need to play these guys because we can't register anyone else. And we've seen it in the Roma game that Celtic get absolutely shredded. So a wing-back position, while it's at Celtic, it's going to be more forward thinking. It is a specialised position that you need to have certain skills for it, and I'm just not sure the guys have got that. They're doing okay in the roles at the minute, but it's going to be very difficult. If you're a wing-back and if you're playing this formation, for me, we're not getting the defensive solidity that a back 3 and 2 wing-backs gives you. And sometimes if you're playing that, you can have 3 centre-halves and 2 defenders as wing-backs. We don't have that. We've got 2 full-backs at centre-half and then 2 wide players or a midfielder there. So if Celtic are going to go forward and we're playing better teams, the players could really struggle in this, and that's my worry about it.
Just on KT, when we're talking about having the full-back at centre-half, obviously we do, but KT's... He's been on the record for Celtic, but we know we've seen him play Stephen left centre-back for Scotland. He's played left centre-back for Arsenal. I think this role might suit him a wee bit better. He looks a wee bit better in this role than he did playing full-back for Celtic, because one, there was questions over his fitness, questions over his engine, as Melly puts it. He's still getting hooked because of the fitness and all that. But this role seems to suit him, and Nancy's sort of carved out a wee position for him where he is playing left-sided centre-back for Celtic, but he's also getting forward a lot. I like this role for Kieran Tierney under Nancy.
Yeah, well, as we've already discussed with the layout of the formation, it doesn't mean they move around in that formation like a flock of geese or anything like that. They do have the freedom to move around within that. There will be freedom of expression in there somewhere, and as we've seen with Tierney, it's not like because you're playing a back three, that's it, those three centre-halves just sit there. They just sit there, they sit on the halfway line and just kick everything away. But what we're seeing is Kieran Tierney might not be the most wide on the left-hand side, but he's still getting forward, he's still popping up in good positions. As we've seen, I mean, he's got 3 goals this season. I mean, granted, not all of those will have come as being part of a back three, but his most recent one is that's him just popping up at the back post. So I wouldn't look at it as, right, he's a centre-half, that means that's just totally nullifying his attacking threat now. But it might, I totally agree, I think it might suit him in that there might not be the incessant pressure to get up and down and bomb up and down. Like you might see a more selective approach in his attacking output. So I'm encouraged by it. Again, it's only one game, but I think Tierney, I thought he was excellent against Aberdeen, and he is exactly the type of guy who might flourish from it. Again, a big might. But what I've thought quite a lot about Kieran Tierney is that he has physically struggled. Yeah, he has quite a lot, and that's just as part of the back four. So hopefully, I really hope it can suit him, because it would be one less problem really when you're looking forward if you've got a really good defensive minded, but
just mentality wise as well. I like him in that role,
and a guy with enough quality to cover both, not like 50-50, but both parts of the role when required to get forward and produce goals like we're seeing from him.
Yeah, he's a good defender. He always has been, and he is good going forward and can whip in a decent delivery. So if he's going to be in that inside centre-half sort of role where he's getting forward and he's going to get on the ball, I don't worry about him on the ball. And it's a stark difference when you see Liam Scales have to come on from, like he did in the Dundee United game, and getting the ball in that final third in that area, and Scales just had a meltdown and just passed to the Dundee United defender. You can see the big difference there, that Liam Scales is better when he's further back. Kieran Tierney's comfortable being forward there, and Tierney's one of probably maybe the only player that this system definitely suits for me. And that's brilliant for Kieran Tierney, but again, that's my worry for this squad and this formation, is there's very little players, but that position, left centre-half, is one of the hardest to find in football. So we've already got that nailed down. Just the other 9 or 10 we can sort, and we can go from there, because I think we've seen over the week how Dundee United, the game, Celtic were flying in the first half, creating chance after chance, and then all it took was Dundee United to go, here, they've got 2 centre-halves at the back. Austin Trusty's their only player over 6 foot. Get the ball into the box and get them on the back foot. We couldn't clear the ball. Conceded 2 goals from the second phase of corners. Then we go into the Aberdeen game, and it's why I'm sort of tempering my expectations from it, is Aberdeen were daft. They tried they tried to play out at the back against Celtic for the whole game, even going down to 10 men. Admirable, but the big problem for Celtic every game they've played is when teams get Celtic on the back foot, putting balls down the channels, putting balls into the box. Celtic have struggled with it. Aberdeen didn't try that, and Celtic got the victory because the first goal's through Celtic pressing them. Daizen Maeda gets the boy sent off because he's pressing in there. So Aberdeen played into Celtic's hands. So I'm going to wait until I've seen a few more games where teams mix it up against Celtic, and Livy away next, away from home, boys. So Martindale's boys going up against it. But Kieran Tierney fits this formation perfectly. We just need to see other players that do as well.
It's been an absolutely mental week for Wilfried Nancy. I mean, the Dundee United stuff, we don't need to replay the whole game, but I thought the Nancy get to fuck stuff was way beyond the pale. I wasn't too fond of that. He looked shell shocked. He looked like a broken man after that game. Fast forward a couple of days against Aberdeen, he's getting his first win and he looks absolutely delighted. I got a wee insight into how much Celtic were paying him, by the way, during the week. Well, we know Brendan Rodgers was on £2 or £3 million a year.
Something like that.
Something like that. Went to Saudi, got 8. So Celtic obviously had 2 or 3 million quid to spend there. I don't think it's quite that much though, because I saw footage of Wilfried Nancy eating a McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, if he was on the Brendan money, he would have been in Five Guys.
Right.
So he would have been treating the kids to a Five Guys or something. So he's obviously, Celtic have shortchanged the manager in some
Cheap, bored yes man. Yeah.
some kind of way. I was delighted for Wilfried Nancy. We're in a weird situation with this. People sort of up to high do left, right, and centre about the Wilfried Nancy, and I can kind of understand why in some instances. But overall, I was just delighted for the guy. He's never been my guy. I've never, although the more people that are against him, my natural inclination is to back him more. But I've always just had this niggling feeling at the back of my mind that he could get something out of this team. I said it even at the depths of it on this podcast, there's just something about, I think the more I hear him speak, he's thoughtful when he talks about the game. He's starting to get a bit of confidence about himself. After the game, he says, you're going to chase down Hearts. He says, we don't chase anyone. We only chase ourselves. We chase performance in our own team. I quite like that. The way he talks about the game, explaining things tactically and why he makes the decisions. I'm quite fond of it. So I was pleased for Wilfried Nancy. I mean, it's only one game, Mel. He needs to build on it, but hopefully he's got a glimpse now of what it feels like to be a winning Celtic manager, just in some small kind of way, and it gives him something to hold on to and actually finally something to build on.
Yeah, and we've seen, and he's came in and it's been a couple of weeks, but already you can see patterns of play and you can see what he's trying to implement here. So if we could get it right, it could be really good for Celtic. And I worried about the back three because I thought, why do you need 3 defenders? But it's looking like one of them's going to be attacking when it's on that side. I still do worry about, it seems the whole world is trying to get bigger physical players in because set pieces and all that are a massive thing, and we're going the complete opposite way to that. So I do have those reservations. But my worry for him more so, when you said it there, is you think he can get something out of these players, and I genuinely don't know if this is the third guy that's going to be trying to do that. And I know you don't mean these players are good and all that, but
well, let me correct myself, because you've when I said I want to get something out of these players, what I meant was more than we were seeing, i.e. I didn't think he was, this portrayal of him as being absolutely hopeless and all the players are terrible and we're going to keep, as if we went from Celtic to, I don't know, a Falkirk, because that's how it looked. We looked awful. We didn't look as if we were ever going to win a game of football again. I thought he could turn that around. I thought there was more to the guy than what we were seeing. But you're right, we'll come on to it. We've got a wee segment later on, or shortly in the podcast, about what does he need. If he's going to make it work, what does he need? But I thought there was more to give from the manager, and I thought he could turn these players around or turn them up.
I don't know if it's turn the players around, because I genuinely don't think you can get much more out of them, and that's not me having a dig, it's the quality's not there. But what we have seen in that one game and half a game against Dundee United is he has a way of playing, and if it works, it will create chances. And earlier this season, despite Celtic, as I said, underperforming the XG, it felt like we weren't creating chances. How many games did we sit here and go, we could have been playing till next week and still wouldn't have scored under Brendan Rodgers because of the way we played, and it became that horseshoe death? Doesn't look like at all like it's going to be a horseshoe death. With that becomes pitfalls, and with that comes the fact that Celtic might be vulnerable to conceding goals. But if we play the way we did on Saturday, with a few extra quality players in there to be more clinical and finish the chances, Celtic could be 3 or 4 goals up in a lot of these games before the other team have had a chance. And if Celtic start to score goals against teams will naturally start to fall back, and that fear factor will come back into Celtic. But I just do worry that the Dundee United game was going to be a sort of microcosm of what it's going to be like with this Celtic team. First half, flying, creating chances. Second half, all it takes is a couple of corners at the start of the half, and then you get yourself back into the game. You get another corner and you're ahead. We need to be more decisive in both boxes, and I don't think the profile of the players, we've got that right now, so that needs to be addressed quickly.
I
Nancy, Stephen, this game, what do you think it meant for him?
Well, I mean,
I don't mean like on a personal level as such. I just mean like in terms of being Celtic manager, in terms of giving them something to build on and encouragement.
Yeah, at this moment in time, I think it's breathing space. I think
Yeah.
it's just a letting of the pressure just a little bit. Now, again, that really intensified after Dundee United. You've already mentioned some of the stuff that was going on. There's no sense in going back into that. I didn't like it at the time either. I thought it was, I got it, but I thought it was focusing on entirely the wrong target. I thought it was letting the board away with it to focus the ire on Wilfried Nancy, which I thought was just completely inappropriate for the time being. But what it means just now is that's it. I can't really extend it really past the fact that it was an enjoyable performance, a very enjoyable performance. In fact, in a year where we haven't had many of those, so again, I'll take it. But going forward, I suspect, and it's something I said under Martin O'Neill as well, I said that the quality level in this squad is such that I can see it reverting to type very, very quickly. Because we did have that little bounce under Martin O'Neill, and don't get me wrong, look, there's been a huge amount of nostalgia already for something that happened only a month ago, but I get that. That's because it was good. We were winning games, and then what came after just set the place alight. It just set the place on fire because we started losing games quite badly in quick succession. But it had started to happen under Martin O'Neill as well. We've already referenced the games that we struggled to create chances, struggled to score goals against St Mirren, what was it, Dundee, Hibs, all those sorts of games. That had already happened, but the credit being given there was found a way to win. That was the sentence of the week. That was what was happening. But he found a way to win. Didn't play well, but he found a way to win.
Pundits loved that one, didn't they? The sort of Martin O'Neill era footballers turned pundits loved the Martin found a way to win.
Aye, and look, this isn't a go at Martin O'Neill because the facts are the facts. They were winning games, but what I thought at the time is that's not sustainable. If you're failing to create chances, that eventually you're going to drop a 0-0 or something, or maybe even like a team might sneak a victory against you or something. We didn't see it. But that St Mirren game was probably the closest it came. Played absolutely pretty abysmally for most of the game, and then Callum McGregor spikes one in for 25 yards. But that's my worry. That's still there. That's still hanging over the team. Like, is this a good enough team, even with a fresh injection of tactics and impetus, where you can find different ways of creating chances? Is that going to last? That's my concern. Now, we're hurtling towards January, not quickly enough for my liking, but we're getting towards that crucial point in the season. And
why are we doing it to ourselves? Why do we do it every
single
single
Christmas?
We're going to make it. We've made our Christmas list. Wilfried Nancy gets to make his Christmas list.
But it's never been more important than it is right now. January is usually it's usually about 2 or 3 bits of quality to add to an already winning team, and that hopefully that can carry us throughout the rest of the season. This is a full-on rebuild in basically a month.
Right, forget it. It's not happening, Melly. But look, let's be realistic here. We're not getting a rebuild in January.
No.
Unless we're going for the Tony Mowbray type, whatever, but I just don't see it. However, that being said, what does Wilfried Nancy need to make this team work? I was, after the game, I'd came not away from the Aberdeen game because I wasn't allowed to watch the game, but off the back of that game, I just thought, give this guy some can we, I'm exasperated and annoyed with it. Can we please give the guy some players so we can actually see what he's trying to achieve? It's the same problem I had with Brendan Rodgers, and it's why Brendan Rodgers resigned. It's the same reason why Ange resigned. It's the same reason why Neil Lennon resigned all those years ago.
And Martin O'Neill apparently reported to the board that this team is needing a massive overhaul.
Jamie, before you go on, please, for the love of God,
yes,
you have to be more specific. It's like ChatGPT. You need to be specific with
right.
it, don't you? Can you please give this guy some players? No.
Yeah.
Can we please give this guy
Change
some
the prompt.
quality players? Because we sign loads of players,
Yes,
but
right,
they're all terrible. So we need some quality players.
So please, for the baby Jesus and Santa and the Saints, can you provide the manager with some good players? Because there seems to be something for me utterly futile about bringing in this systems-based manager and but just not providing him with the players he needs. And anybody watching that game, whether you were at the boardroom or just on the telly or whatever, you're seeing a team crying out for quality at the back, but desperately need a quality at the front, maybe a midfielder, and that is it for me. I think it is this team is so in need of a striker. it's unthinkable that we don't get a good striker in January. That needs to actually be the sole aim of everyone working at Celtic Football Club, is to get a striker in the door, one that can score goals for us. I think we probably need a bit of help in midfield. I think someone in the midfield that's a bit of an enforcer there. We probably need that. And do we need someone at right wing back or right centre half? Maybe, but those three I would settle. But to be honest with you, at this point, I would settle for 3 good players of any position, because I think we need help everywhere.
Yeah, you would definitely do the striker first and foremost, but like, it's not Football Manager or anything like that, where you go for that player, then you go to the next position. Celtic just need to bring in good players, and that's going to be difficult enough going by our previous records. But
what you've watched the games now, you're in charge of Celtic's profile. You're in charge of Celtic's recruitment, rather. You say to Nancy, we've got a limited budget here. What do you need to work? And you're expecting him to say what?
Striker first and foremost. We definitely need that. Then I would possibly right wing back, I think it would be. I think we, depending on the injuries to, look, this could all be different if we had Alistair Johnson,
Sirachi's big, I think,
Ian Acho, Jota, Carter Vickers. You put 5 bits of quality into that team and you go, do you know what, maybe we can muddle through with this. But I think we need a right wing back, maybe muddle through with Yang, but if not, look, GSP is going to go in January, isn't it? There's probably no chance. But we need a right centre half, because you can see what Kieran Tierney can do on the other side. Tony Ralston's not that type of player, but this is my problem with this system, is the players you're going to need are going to be so specific. Like, if it's going to be Kieran Tierney on the left-hand side, brilliant. Trusty in the middle, fine. On the right-hand side needs to be a tall centre half who's strong, pacey, and is good on the ball.
Can you explain to people who might not know, when them sitting in this chair, why that's specific to this system? Why did Brendan Rodgers' system not need a tall, pacey centre half who's good in the air? Because it sounds to me like every formation could benefit from one of those.
Yeah, and it will, but if we have Brendan Rodgers' formation where you have a back 4, you've got Ralston, Tierney as the fullback, say, and then you've got Trusty in there. That's all Celtic have got now. So you're taking out aerial presence, you're taking out somebody who's good in the air in both boxes, and you've taken that down. This is Scotland, where that's one of the main tactics of other players. So it has to be somebody who is of a centre-back profile, but also of ability on the ball of a full-back, and that's very difficult to find. Celtic need to get the right sort of physical profile, because how many times have we came up against European teams and went, these guys are all giants, and it's happening in Scotland as well. If Celtic had more physical players, and I mean like height and ability in there, Celtic would have won that game comfortably against Dundee United, but couldn't get out. And that's why I still have grave reservations about this formation, because if you're looking for players, you've got a right centre half who needs to be good in the air and good on the ball. Carter Vickers will come in, and then Tierney. That would be a good defence. Even on the left-hand side, left and right wing-back positions, they need to be good on the ball, pacey, have an engine, and be able to be good in defence and good in attack. Very, very difficult to find.
Yeah.
And then in the midfield, like you said, we could probably do with some help in there. In the holding midfield, you need somebody who is an enforcer, who has a physical profile, who can get about and who can pass. Everybody would love one of them as well. So the specifics we need, and then
can we have Rodri for £2.5 million, please?
Find the other Rodri, but that's what Celtic need. And even with the number 10s, I would probably prefer it if we had more winger type guys like Maeda on one side and Jota on the other. But I think he's wanting more sort of central players, so we need one of them as well. And it's a hell of a lot of surgery for a guy that's under a lot of pressure, and if he doesn't win the league, probably doesn't see out the season. And I haven't even mentioned goalkeeper yet, and that's something we're definitely going to need to address. So that could be like 7-8 positions, and then that they all need to be good and starting players. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen in January, that's for sure, Stephen.
Does it happen over 2 windows? But
no,
it's going to be a long.
Well, that's kind of colouring my Christmas wish list here as well, because I think for a lot of reasons we need to live in the real world for the time being. As much as we'd love to talk about rebuilds and putting all the positions in January, I think is pretty absurd for obvious reasons.
And that's us keeping Callum McGregor and Daizen Maeda beyond the end of this season as well. So
and it's like we need to keep Daizen now as well. In January, where we'd all made our peace with the end of the
Is his contract up at the end of the year?
No,
End of next
yeah,
season.
at the end of next season.
So
He's got to go, but ideally we would have sold him in January. In fact, ideally we would have sold him in summer, but then next best would have been sell him in January because everything's going fine and we've sourced the replacement. So again, another reason we need to live in the real world here. Another reason we need to live in the real world here. So with that in mind, I'm not bothered at midfield for now. I think we can just about survive there. I'm trying to prioritise here and try and be as realistic as possible. I think striker is a non-negotiable. I think that's
probably
number
two.
one. Yeah, you probably are too, because what we've seen is Iheanacho. I'm not going to really consider it anymore because it'll take some doing to prove that he isn't basically finished, and that's he
keeps getting injured.
It's really unfortunate. We had that discussion last week about how good he is. He's such a good footballer, but he can't run in a straight line. See, even before that moment where he pulled up and grabbed his hamstring, even when he began the run, I thought that guy can't move anymore. But anyway, like, he's out of the picture for now, and I don't think it's worth considering beyond really. He's only got a 1 year contract anyway, so we do need probably two strikers, because if you bring one in, you're one injury away from being exactly back in this position. So I'm not bothered about midfield for now at all. I think we'll be absolutely fine there. It's not ideal, and I do agree with everything you've said, but again, needs must. I think we need to focus on what we absolutely desperately need. I think the right side centre half, I think, is probably priority 2. I mean,
and Rodri priority 3.
Rodri's priority 3. But I'm also, when it comes to accepting the real world and the situation we're in, I'm really not going to be turning my nose up at loans. I know a lot of people do. I know a lot of people don't like that, right? A lot of people have the view of that you shouldn't be developing other teams' players, etc., right? But real world again, we're second in the league. We need players desperately.
See, how about we loan them and don't develop them like GSP? How do you like that?
See, again, do you know what? That is probably a reason not to go down that route, but that's not to suggest that's that's
just
in
loan
any way
players that actually want to be here. There's a start.
But see, if, for example, off the top of my head, I'm not going to name any names, but because I don't know what's out there. But for example, if there are 19, 20-year-olds who can't get on the bench or can't get a look in at like your Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, because they've got far too many players, take them and see if they're going to score goals.
I disagree with that, mate. Looking across at Rangers, having a poor time, mate, gladly for us, but they've got Magoma, they've got Njiga, they've got Aarons. They're littered with loan players that have just got no future there. And like 3 of their back 4, well, like Fernandez, they're bringing in young players at the back. That doesn't work. You can maybe supplement 1 or 2.
This is a striker in January I'm after, though. Like, they've built their entire team on that.
All right, I thought you were talking about your right centre half sort of thing.
Well, that's a good point, actually. I meant more as I try to detail there, if there is a guy who's like desperate, scoring goals for like Premier League 2 team or whatever. Again, I'm just trying to be realistic.
I know,
here.
But my point would be here. See, if we're going to go out and loan players, it should be players who are experienced players that aren't playing for a team that have got no future. And
like Raheem Sterling.
Well, maybe not in that sort of category, but maybe a level or 2 below that guys that aren't playing, that maybe are out of our price range, that we wouldn't be able to get long term, but need to play football because there's a World Cup coming at and just want to play football.
Talking about Kyogo?
No, not at all. No, he's not scored a goal this season, and I hate going back the way again.
Yes, I'm against that.
So, but it needs to be somebody that can come in and just not hit the ground running, but be prepared to play. We can't have an MD coming in that we're going to need to teach on the job, because we've got so many of them and it's not working now. And bringing a young player into this environment, if they get off to a bad start, it's done already.
So the one thing I've always felt about a striker is, talking about the only striker that we're talking about here, is see if they've not scored goals at a similar level of some consistency to what we are bringing them in at, they're probably going to struggle here. I don't, and when I say that, is like you pointed to Kyogo, but he's not scored this season. I would be very.
He's got one.
Oh, he's got
some
one.
Respect on his name.
Well, that's fine.
It wasn't in the league right enough. It was some cup game ages ago.
He's got 1 goal. I don't want to go back. I'd be reluctant to take him because he looks as if he's massively out of form.
What's the difference between him and Jota? Just as an aside.
Well, Kyogo's a little Japanese striker, and Jota is an injured Portuguese winger.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
You fucking idiot.
But in terms of profile, we say we don't go back. We don't take.
Jota's
players,
not a striker.
But we don't take players who have flopped in the last 2 clubs. We did that with Jota.
No,
paid 10 million for him.
It's not the. him flopping. It's just the age profile
There
as
is
well. And why are you making us even smaller, Stephen? Bring Kyogo back as
But,
well.
like, again, real world here. He
Look,
eats up those chances.
He'd scored 4 goals in the last
Aye.
2 games. I get that, but I know it's desperate times and all that, but we need to start moving forward or trying to move forward. And
Get a league to win here. We are second in the league. Stop talking
Do you know
about
what?
building for the future.
I think that's missed. We are second in the league after all the crap that we've been through. We are still second in the league, 6 points and a game in hand, and that's why we can't afford to take any chances. And that's why I want a striker in that scored goals somewhere. I want a striker in that scored goals somewhere else, lots and lots of goals. But the Melly's right as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to go back on the Kyogo thing. I just don't want to go back. I want to look forward. I want fresh faces. I want new and exciting. And I want Wilfried Nancy to have the striker he wants. If he looks at Kyogo and goes, by God, this is exactly the striker that I've always wanted, then by all means. But
if it's a stopgap, possibly. But
see the guys that we've looked at, and I did this on another podcast before, and I don't have the numbers in my head, but every other striker we've looked at that we didn't sign, all these guys we missed out on, the players we signed were crap. The guys we didn't sign, the guys we lost out on and get gazumped or couldn't afford, are having equally bad seasons. That's my worry. I want a striker who is, like you say, maybe a bit older in the tooth, so there's a bit of experience there. All these are things are pointing to Kyogo, and someone who scored goals. I want a really, really, really low risk January, like you say, Stephen, and I want just 2 or 3 players just to win this league.
But again, though, like, what does that look like? A 27-year-old proven striker at a level similar to Scotland. So we're talking about like Austrian, Swiss leagues.
well,
Those guys go for
doesn't need
40
to be
million,
proven.
right?
It could be somebody that's went and tried to go that level above and not quite doing it. Now Celtic are good.
Yeti.
Is there anyone that jumps to mind? Is there anyone sitting on any lower Premier League bench somewhere that just can't get a sniff of the squad? Was Danny Ings up to?
there will be
Darren Huckerby.
there will be plenty of players out there. The Premier League's difficult because the average wage down there is $100,000 a week, and it's never going to be the case. But again, we've had since the 1st of September to get targets, and it shouldn't be that much different for a striker. Maybe we will have to switch away the way we look at players in the full-back and centre-half positions because we're looking for specific type players, but the striker should be the same sort of profile.
The MD in the league that you would take? MD playing in Scotland, do you think? Cammy Devlin. Take a Cammy Devlin. Would you go at Hearts and go, here's £3 million, give us Shankland and Devlin? You're strengthening Celtic with 2 players who really aren't good enough to be here, but you're also weakening the competition. Would you try that one?
Proper 90s tactics, isn't it?
Because I'm bitter, probably not.
I wouldn't take either of them.
But there is decent players that we have missed out on, and there's decent players playing in Scotland. Would a lot of them come in and improve our team right now? Probably. But that's, again, how far we've fallen.
Aye.
Would I want to be targeting them to take Celtic to the next level? No, but would I bring in players that would be stopgaps till the end of the season? But I just always feel with this formation, unless we get the players right in, we're always going to be having stopgaps in there, and I don't think that's right.
What are we doing here? This is the entire sport. Can we not just find someone who's going to kick the ball in the goal hole?
Yeah, well, we do struggle with that.
I'm going to find someone who can do that, please,
We
on a
used to have
semi-regular
loads
basis.
of
I know.
This is my worry about Johnny Kenny. Like everyone's like, Johnny Kenny's graded on a curve, and I get it because of where he came from. But the simple fact of the matter is, he's Celtic's number 9, or well, whatever number he is. He's Celtic's number 1 striker at the moment. It's Dembele, Edward, Kyogo, Johnny Kenny. Like that's
Even Griffiths.
Griffiths, Gary Hooper.
He does even better.
He's in that company, and that's the problem. That's how far things have fallen. But look,
this is the first time, just a final point on that, this must be the first time in over a decade that we haven't had any of those guys. So we haven't had a Kyogo, an Edward, a Dembele or a Griffiths. We're going back to when the Griffiths signed 2013 or 14 or something like that. So this is the first time, in shock horror, this is the first season we've gone into we're going into a season without a proper strike. Kyogo as well, of course. First season we've gone into a league campaign without any of guys of that calibre, and lo and behold, can he score goals? It's almost like they're in some way linked.
I know. Well, I hope Wilfried gets his Christmas presents. We've got Christmas presents to give each other. We are decked out, Melee.
Yes.
This is
that's lovely.
Yeah, this is a 20-minute Tim scarf.
That must be a one-off.
No, you can buy them. There's a link in the bio if you want to buy a 20-minute Tim scarf.
For that, I reckon at least £1,500.
Correct. So
you're supposed to sell it when I tell
all right. No, they are not 15-minute Tims. You can get these beautiful scarves. Show your support. And listen, they've been flying off the shelves.
Yes, yeah.
But we've yet to see one in the wild, so we want to be the first person. But all this Celtic stuff, it's done as well. Bought it about 8 years ago. We dig it out the drawer every time it's Christmas. And we're going to do some gift giving, right?
So full disclosure here.
Right. What?
Now, we've done
You
this.
bought all yours for the Celtic shop, didn't you?
Oh,
you
you
scab
rat. So we do this every year. It's been a long-standing tradition where we exchange gifts at Christmas. But we were moving our recording studio, our recording space last year, and we ended up doing remote podcasts throughout December, and therefore it didn't really happen. So these are the presents I bought this year, or last year rather, and they weren't exchanged. So I cannot remember what on earth is in this wrapping paper. So I'll be as surprised as anyone.
We're about to see what kind of mood Stephen was in last December if he's been generous. Well, I'll go first,
Right,
because this is a joint gift for you and Melly.
All right.
Beautiful orange sort of Jolly Rancher or whatever. So Stephen, if you want to,
Is that masking tape in the side as well?
Melly, you're lucky.
And by the way, for the benefit of listeners, please do watch the video because it's kind of wasted.
Yeah. There you go. Show the camera.
It's Stephen and Melly Funko Pop.
There you go. Look at that. Let me hold that a wee bit closer to the camera. Let's have a look. See there. There you go. Melly, Stephen, your own custom-made Funko Pops. For the listeners, Stephen's looks like a little man with a laptop and a microphone.
Why have I got a laptop? You've made me look a perv.
Because you are a pair. Because you're on Pornhub. No, it's because, and Melly, you've got a little ginger cat because that's what you've got in real life.
Yes.
There we go. I'll find a place for these to go in the studio while you guys are giving me my presents.
Yes, well, one of eagle-eyed listeners, eagle-eyed watchers will maybe be able to see that last year, as you said, Stephen, we didn't give over presents.
Yep.
Your present from last year has been in this room the whole time, Jamie, and you have failed to notice it on a number of occasions. So I got you the High Performance book by Jake Humphrey last year. There was a number of podcasts where it sat there last year, but nobody noticed, and that is it there. So it has been there since last year. So I've brought yours from last year, Stephen, as
playing
well.
the long bit there. There must have
Yeah.
been so many people watching podcasts thinking, God, the High Performance wankers.
You know exactly how to grind my gears.
Right, Jamie, here is
Okay.
yours from mine. You mention a lot on the podcast that you are not a great tactician. You don't know too much about
Yeah.
tactics.
Right, okay.
So I thought I'd solve that for you.
It's Connect 4. You take the piss out of the Celtic manager on the podcast.
I bought it before the weekend.
The last thing he needs.
Stephen, again,
Thank you very much.
this season.
Oh, Melly's hair fell off. That's what we just
a
get
little
that
Stephen
then. There we go.
Give a year.
Yeah, I know. Regift it, Nick.
You can bring that to the games in Everton, Steve.
Yes, I'm prepared. I'm prepared
There
for
you go.
whatever the collective say next. That's me prepared.
That's quite dirty
I've got my
looking.
shark. I've got my shark.
That is yours from last year, Stephen,
thank
as
you very
well,
much. Thank
so
you.
you're not feeling left out.
And
It's inspired by a Celtic YouTuber as well that we watch as well.
What the fuck is that?
The Timpsons.
The Timpsons Celtic fan club scarf. Beautiful.
Absolutely. So you're flogging other scarves, right?
So there we go.
I've got one more. I got you each
Wow.
the same gift because the two of you definitely need these this season.
Let's have a look at this.
Absolutely.
Melly's blown the budget here, Stephen.
Goodness me.
This is essential for you guys.
This tax deductible. Yeah.
Melly.
You pair of bedwetters, you will need these for this season.
Stephen can have mine. Yeah, he needs
It's
that.
absolutely disgraceful.
Melly actually bought men's sanitary pants.
And quite a lot of it. I'd love to have been serving them.
I know. Melly, what are you going to be doing with these after the podcast?
I stayed here.
All right, there we
So,
go.
as I said, I do not remember what is in these
Is this
wrappers.
mine, eh?
So yeah, that's yours. And that's yours.
Right,
Enjoy.
Call me a bit better.
So I'll be as surprised as anyone once they open.
Right, you open them, I'll open.
Go one at a time, I suppose. Let's.
Mine is a lovely Neil Lennon stuffed toy, but it's the face he's making with a mouthful of snus.
It must be the anniversary of that coming up soon.
What's he got in his hand?
A beer! He's got a beer. I love Neil Lennon. There you go, Martin Melly.
Right, let's see.
Scout's going to absolutely
Oh,
demolish this thing.
mine's twofold as well. The funniest Celtic quotes ever.
There we go.
There's Gordon Strachan on the front.
On the back, one from Arthur Boric. Scottish women, they are not very pretty.
Hey, wow. You want to pick another one? You just want to leave it at that?
And then I've got a T-shirt that says Chucky Allah with Chucky with a balaclava.
Excellent. Listen, if you would like to gift somebody a 20 Minute Tim's Patreon membership, you can do that at patreon.com/20 Minute Tim's. Last minute gift, stocking filler. We should have been plugging it before, but we're terrible at plugging things properly. Patreon.com/20 Minute Tim's. Listen, thank you very much for joining us on this Christmas episode. Thank you. Do you want to say Merry Christmas to the listeners?
Yes, and goodwill to all men and all that. Is that what you're supposed to say at Christmas? I can never remember. God blesses everyone. That's the one I'm looking for. Yeah, but genuinely, have a good one, folks.
Yes.
Yeah, have a good time. Whatever you choose to do, whether you celebrate this or whatever, have a good one. And we hope the good thing is Celtic have won. They cannot. As it stands, they cannot ruin your Christmas day. We'll find out more on the 27th, but they can't ruin
dish out
Christmas.
a couple of contract extensions or something like that.
Statement incoming. Yes, Merry Christmas, folks. Have a good one. And as always, Happy New Year when it comes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas, and importantly, keep the hail. Bye-bye.